Welcome back. I'm here with my pastor, Ruth Verona, and my pastor of years ago, Deanna Mingo. She's going to continue her story with Pastor Ruth making some comments as well. Go ahead, ladies.
I've been thinking about Grandma being filled with the Spirit. What was that story? I can't credit it with that. I know that she was filled with the Spirit in tongues way back in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. I can't remember.
I don't know the entire story, but I know she was affected by Azusa Street.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, she loved a lady preacher.
Amy Semple.
Amy Semple McPherson. She'd been in her meetings.
And that affected how she viewed church.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I told you how my salvation experience and my grandmother continued to be a major influence in my life spiritually and every other way. But eventually we moved up from Portland, Oregon to Seattle, Washington. And we resumed going to church at the Revival Center. And at that point they were still having their weekly evangelistic meetings and 3 services on Sunday, so my whole life surrounded the church. I was in their youth choir from the very beginning and very much involved in everything that was going on there that I could be involved in. And this calling on my life continued to grow, and I would watch all the evangelists coming through there, and their lives seemed to be exactly what I wanted mine to be. And their wives seemed to have an exciting life. They were always attractive women and musically inclined. And one group that really impressed my life a lot was the Bud Chambers and his brothers. They were musical, and they also preached, and he wrote a song you might have heard, "I Was Born to Love the Lord," written by Bud Chambers. And so as I grew up through my adolescence in that church, everything I ever wanted to do was go to Bible school and marry a preacher. Well, it came time to graduate from high school, and I had no way to get to Bible school. My family was not economically able to do anything like that for me. So my grandmother was always searching for the next move of God that she could be involved in, and she wasn't little, she was quite a large lady, started a church down on First Avenue in Seattle. And it was right across the street from the Public Market, which is an icon in Seattle now. And it was in a room upstairs. They called it the upper room. So I used to go up there on Sunday evenings and different times because she would let me play the organ, and I wanted to learn how to play it. She had an organ there. So I would go up there at different times and go in there and practice little choruses and things on the organ. So one night we were there, and this guy came in with a minister that I'd grown up with, who I knew very well. His name was Dean McKay. He and his brother were twins, and they were involved in the Revival Center movement. And he happened to be with Mickey, or knew Mickey. And he happened to be in the service that night. I don't remember why, but he was coming out to some of those meetings, and I was there with my grandmother, and this young guy came in and went right up to the organ and started playing the organ. And so Eugene McKay, he says, "Deanna, I want you to meet an old friend of mine, Mickey." So So he introduced me, and I said hello, and I thought he was Mickey Finn, the wrestler, because I had heard that he had gotten saved. And Mickey had one of these bulky builds, you know. He wasn't a heavy guy at that point, but he was bulky, so I thought, gosh, you look like a wrestler. I bet that's Mickey Finn.
He was all upper body.
I bet that's Mickey Finn. Well, of course it wasn't. It was Mickey Mingo. And 6 weeks later, Mickey Mingo asked me to marry him. He took me across the mountains, which is 150 miles, to meet Sister Wine, his pastor. And on the way home, he asked me to marry him. And I said yes. So, because I had seen the ministry in his life, or the ministry potential in his life. And at that time, I had no idea where Mickey Mingo was coming from. All I knew is that he had been involved in the same church I had been raised in, and knew a lot of the same people I knew. And so after the initial engagement, he got cold feet. And he was really on his way back to the Lord during those times, and I was unaware. But my grandmother liked him, so I thought, well, I have half a chance. If she likes him, it's going to be okay. And 6 months later, we did get married. And by this time, we had he had tried to start a church. He wanted his ministry back. And I still didn't know what was going on previously to the backslidden years previous to my meeting him. And I didn't find that out till quite some time later. But he really did have a charismatic and a powerful ministry, even though it was not mature at that point, I don't believe. But what he did to start a church was he rented the building that I was actually saved in. It had been used for the World's Fair in 1962. They had turned it into a dormitory. And then after that, they turned it into a parking lot. And then it came up for sale again, and he rented it for some ridiculous price. It was, very small. So the building had been totally gutted except for the offices, which had been church offices at one time. So when we got married, that building is what we moved into. And we lived in the church offices, the shell. So my first home after marriage, we had about 100 toilets, huge, massive showers.
Which all had to be cleaned, no doubt.
And we lived in a little office space with no kitchen. So all we really had was a coffee pot. And that's how we started our life together. But when he started that church, he started it actually before we were married. And he started it with a gospel hootenanny. Folk music was hot back then.
Okay.
So this gospel hootenanny, he invited the choir from his pastor's church in Yakima. And we had a man there who played a saw. And I played an accordion with my brother. We did a duet. And so that was the beginning, actually, which started the little church that he was attempting to do there. And that was the beginning of our ministry together. And there was a space of time between that and the time that we actually did go out on the field together as a couple. The Lord opened some doors miraculously. So.
All right.
I was thinking about what you said, that you wanted to sit with the other teenagers.
Yeah, it's a little part.
All right, we'll be back with more